during COVID last year, as everyone probably did, we had our own set of struggles. We had this point in time where it just exploded. Hey guys, Dan Nikas here. I'm the founder of GearBunch.com.
Hey, this is Amber with Coco Moon.
This is Josh Krause of IceHomeArcadeGames.com.
And you're listening to...
You're listening to
the E-Comm Show.
Welcome to the E-Comm Show, presented by BlueTuskr, the #1 place to hear the inside scoop from other e-commerce experts, where they share their secrets on how they scaled their business and are now living the dream. Now, here is your host, Andrew Math.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ecom Show. I am your host, Andrew Math, and today I am joined by Dan Nikas, who is the founder of GearBunch as well as Elite Brands. Dan, how you doing? You ready for a good show?
Doing great, mate. I can't wait. It's going to be good.
Yes. This one's going to be fun. I'm always super excited about every episode, and I say it every episode, and I'm trying not to, but then I know who I'm talking to, and I go, no, but like I actually am super excited. So the thing I love about this episode specifically is that you obviously have realized a hole in the market and started a second business, which we're going to get into. But I'd love to kick it off. Let's pretend that no one knows anything about GearBunch and just give us a little bit of insight into that business first. And then we're going to move into the other one as well. And we'll go from there, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been online now since about 2011. Bit of a side hustle to start with. End up having a career change. Moved into selling T-shirts online using what used to be called Teespring. Found out that I was actually pretty good at that. So, was doing all right. But what I found is I was trading my time for money. I was actually building someone else's business. So at the end of 2016, decided to launch GearBunch because I thought, well, I can do what I'm doing, but I can do it for myself and build my own brand and my own business. And that was just a massive, massive shift in the way I had to think about things. So launched GearBunch, doing print on demand for leggings because the T-shirt market was getting really saturated, and instantly it just took off. So, in our first year, we did in excess of 4 million in gross sales, 4 million US in gross sales. And it was just
in your first year?
Huge in the first year. Yeah, Jeez. It just exploded. But with that came a lot of, it sounds amazing, and I'm not going to say it wasn't amazing. It was amazing, but it came with its own really steep learning curve, everything from customer support to payment processes freezing our funds to fraud to having to learn email marketing because I relied on someone else doing that for the other online marketing that I had done before. To, even just conversion rate optimization, also just everything that goes with a website that you own. And it was just this massive steep learning curve, but got through it, learned a stack and, continued to grow, ended up partnering with Disney, selling Marvel products through the website. Really steady growth, got recognised by Shopify and Facebook, become one of Facebook's global trainers, and that's what sort of started Elite Brands, is because I was travelling the world as a speaker about Facebook ads and GearBunch, and I never hid the fact that, GearBunch was mine and this is how we do it and this is what we do, and I would just share it with everyone because as I've spoken to lots of people about, I really dislike those gurus online that hide behind, secrecy and privacy, and they never actually tell you what they do. They just tell you what you should do, and here, pay me money, and I'll tell you how you should do it. And I just got really sick of that. So I just would get on stage and I'd say, this is me and this is what I do, and you can try and copy it if you want, but it's a lot of hard work, and it's, obviously copycats did pop up. But what I did find is that because of that honesty and because I was good with Facebook ads, I'd come off stage and people would be saying, can you do this service for me? Can you do this service for me? Can you do what you're doing for GearBunch for me? And I would just say, no. I'm not a guru. I'm just a guy who's running his own business. And I did that for a couple of years. What I found during that time is that I was still getting asked to go around and do these talks about GearBunch, about how we get these really good ROAS on our ads and stuff like that. But the secret is that I'd also figured out email marketing in the background, and not just your typical build a list, blast campaigns out. Like, I got really granular. I'm a really analytical guy, and figured out a way to email market that complemented the ads to the Facebook ads to complete this ecosystem. So they didn't act independently of each other. And what it did was just supercharge those Facebook results. So I started coming off stage with people like, oh my God, how are you getting that sort of ROAS on your Facebook ads for GearBunch? And they're like, can you do it for us? And I'd be like, no, because it wasn't just Facebook ads. It was this whole email marketing thing. So in the end, people asked me enough. I ended up getting a couple of closer mates who had brands and sort of doing it for them. And it just sort of grew from there. But yeah, I mean, it's been the backbone of GearBunch. So during COVID last year, as everyone probably did, we had our own set of struggles. We had this point in time where it just exploded. Like, I think everyone going into lockdown around the world, everyone was on their device. You know, our business, it was like 2017 again. You know, all the ads were converting. Everything was doing really well. But then the problem we had is that our production facilities, which are based in the US, they weren't an essential service, so they got shut down.
Yeah.
So we had to move everything to a production facility we have in Europe. But what that meant is that we had increase in volume, and instead of having 3 fulfillment facilities, we only had 1. And in that 1 fulfillment facility, they had to social distance, so they were at half capacity. So the maths just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And then you fold on top of that we had problems with, postal services because of COVID, and everything slowed down. All their business increased, but they obviously slowed down as well. So we hit a big wall with our reputation online because we could not get the products out to people in the time that we normally do. And people were just relentless. Even during COVID, when we'd be reaching out to them saying, hey, like, this is what's happening, people were relentless with us. And we actually had to switch off all our ads because we just couldn't keep in good, ethically to keep selling to people. And, that was a big, big learning experience. We spent a lot of time managing our reputation and improving that again because we'd spent, 3.5, 4 years building up our reputation online. And that's such a big thing, is trust. When you've got your online website, there's 1,001 drop shippers out there selling cheaper leggings. I can Google now and buy a pair of leggings for $10 and look exactly the same as mine because they've been ripped off. But we had that trust, we had that quality. But as soon as we lost that trust, it just killed us. So we then fell back on email marketing again to improve the reputation of GearBunch, to get it back up, and then to start warming everyone back up into purchasing. So we went back to that well of those VIP customers that we'd had for so many years to start that momentum back up again.
So much to unravel there. So you're selling globally. COVID was horrible for everyone. Depending on how you look at it, it's the one weird thing that I always struggle with when I bring up like how 2020 went for everyone, is because for most e-commerce sellers it was great, but obviously from a personal standpoint, not the best thing to happen to everyone.
No.
So you got slammed. You had to shut down, in a couple different facilities you had, and you went to Europe. So you're clearly selling globally. Correct.
Yeah, 100%. So we sell. Look, most of what we sell comes out of North America, and that's part of our unique selling proposition, is that we make our products in the US. What that means is it's such a huge selling point to the US market because everyone's proud. I mean, Australians like to buy Australian made. People in the US like to buy US made. And we're pushing away from that fast fashion mentality. We do price our products a little bit higher. And the reason is because we can say to people, we've got the quality, we sell in the US. The other thing is that we sell majority in the US is because our delivery times are really great. Being POD, like print on demand, the product doesn't exist until the customer orders it, obviously. But with producing and selling in the US, we can have it out to the customer at their door, made and delivered in less than 2 weeks, which is great. Whereas if sitting here in Australia, it's going to take probably 3 to 4 weeks. And that's not that's not cool with most people because, and that's sort of beyond our control. We can still get it out of our production facilities really quickly, but it's got to get out of one country and into another. Mm-hmm. So most of our sales go through the US. We then started producing out of EU, out of Latvia actually, because we were getting absolutely hammered with the customs and duty tax as things were coming from the US into Europe. It was just the taxes that were sitting on them were actually worth more than the products in some countries we were shipping to. So the way that the legislation works there is that if you produce it in the EU, you can send it out there and it doesn't attract those taxes and duties, which is why we sell there. Southern Hemisphere, like down my way, Australia, New Zealand, Asia Pacific area, we sell a little bit, but I don't push much actively out in terms of paid media. If we sell organically, they're cool. But yeah, I just don't like the wait times that people have. But then so in the end result is most get sold in North America through Canada, through the US and Canada.
So it's not incredibly common to find a seller that lives in one country but does a majority of their business in another. Did you originally start only selling in Australia and then branch out, or did you actually start in the US and then branch out from there?
US first. And that's because the supply was in the US. And my experience before selling with Teespring, they're an American-based production company as well. So, it was the same. It was problematic when you wanted to sell something to Australia or to New Zealand or even in Europe, that there was either taxes that came with it or delayed shipping times, because sometimes things would just sit in customs and we've got no control over it. The production facility had no control of it. So I was accustomed to selling in the US market. And, we're talking back in 2016 and 17, Facebook ads were exceptionally granular, and it didn't rely so much on big budgets and the algorithm doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It was, the marketer sitting behind it and putting that right product in front of the right person at the right time. They've made that a lot harder, and that's a struggle that we've had to overcome because we've got such a big product range. We've got thousands of products. So fundamentally, the short answer to that is I started in America. I talk a lot, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I can tell by a lot of the directions you keep going, you clearly have a marketing background. You're a marketing guy.
Mm-mm.
No?
No, I'm an ex-homicide detective here in Australia.
Oh yeah, that was my next guess.
Yeah, of course.
How did that happen?
Okay, so I started at the police academy when I was 19. Mm-hmm. And then when I eventually worked through the ranks, I was really good at the job. I ended up being a homicide detective as a detective sergeant, which is a pretty big deal. It was sort of like where, it's your dream position. When you become a police officer, you want to become a detective, and the best detectives investigate homicide. Unfortunately for me, it really took its toll. I did a lot of child homicide because I was actually good at the job. So they gave me that role and I just pushed through it. And eventually what happened, long story short, I ended up getting medically retired due to mental health problems with dealing with these situations all the time. I didn't become a very nice person at the end. I'd sort of run out of empathy and, when you constantly go to work and see the worst side of life every day, I had this, this work life where I'd either be dealing with the worst people that you could think of, or I was dealing with good people talking with them about the worst thing that had ever happened to them. Yeah. So there was never a good day at work, ever. So it just wore me down. Eventually, my mental health got to a point where the doctors said, look, you can't do this job anymore. And I got medically retired. And it was a real shock to me because I'd never planned to do anything else with my life. Like I saw myself keep going through the ranks and eventually retiring as a police officer, as an old man. And the other scary thing is that I'd never done anything else. I never went to university. I never went to college. I don't have a marketing or an IT background. I joined when I was 19. I didn't even have a trade. I'm the most unhandy guy on earth. Like I could not walk into another job. I would have had to go into an entry-level job. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I had 3 kids and a mortgage and a beautiful wife, and all of a sudden my career was over. There was no income. And I was a little bit embarrassed by everything that went on. So I sat down in the house, day after day, week after week, month after month, and taught myself how to market online. What I found is that I had a real knack for Facebook ads. It just made sense to me. And because I'd spent this whole career being trained to find people who didn't want to be found. And here I was with a platform where I had to find people to put products in front of them, but they actually were happy when I found them because I was giving them something that solved a problem or it was something that they were interested in. And these people aren't hiding from you. Like, they were telling me their dogs' names. They were telling me if they were pregnant. They even share photos of what they're eating for dinner. It was just like a detective's dream. It's like, I'm not trying to, find someone who's hiding everything from me. I'm trying to find people who are telling me everything about their life. And it was just, I found it just clicked. And I thought everyone else was in the same boat. So when people would go like, how are you doing this? I'd be like, well, I'm just doing what you're doing. When GearBunch was exploding everywhere. And, excuse me, even when I, first got asked to come speak on stage about the success of GearBunch and Facebook ads, I thought it was a bit of I didn't believe it to start with. Like, in the police, to try and get a work trip to another state to do your job, you might as well be asking your boss for their firstborn child. Like, it would just, government departments just don't like spending any money. And then I'm getting messages and calls from people over in Europe and in America saying, hey, we want to fly you over to come and talk on stage. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you want from me? Like, when I'm there, and they said, just half an hour on stage, that's it. And I said, you're going to fly me to America, you're going to accommodate me, and you're going to look after me just for half an hour on stage. And they're like, yep. And I'm like, okay.
Done.
Sounds good. So that sort of, and that just opened me up to that world. And then, that was my background, or that is my background. And I'm still proud of it. I look back on it a little bit more fondly now. I'd never told anyone to start with, because initially, I didn't even use my real name online to start with. I used my nickname because it's a big thing in the police. You don't want people to know everything about you. Mm-hmm. But now I'm 7 years removed from that career, and those sort of barriers have come down. And that fear that if you tell people that you used to be a police detective, that no one will want to talk to you anymore, because that's another fear that you have, is that people don't like police for whatever reason. But, that's probably a misconception you have when you're a police officer, because you're only dealing with the people that don't like you. But the majority of the people are, happy for your service, and they're interested about talking about what you used to do and things like that. They still complain that they got a speeding ticket here and there, but, I just used to tell people I didn't, that wasn't my job. My job was different.
It's a crazy correlation from the job you used to have to the job you have now, and where you obviously kind of cater to on the Facebook ads and the email marketing side, which is a fantastic way for us to kind of move into a little bit about your other company, Elite Brands, which I'd love to get your insight, especially now where we're at here, kind of in Q4 of 2021, your thoughts around now we're into iOS 15 and the limitations in both Facebook and now also email. So how are you dealing with all that?
So look, it was a big moment for us last year. We realized how much we were relying on email to keep us afloat. And by this stage, when COVID hit last year, we did have about 10 clients that we were running email marketing for around the world. The common message we were getting back from them is that without the email marketing, they probably would have got under. It was keeping businesses either, above water or still slightly profitable during what was a tough time for a lot of them. Because, there was, with all that uncertainty, a lot of our clients sell nice to have products, luxury items. It was, so people were like, they were unsure about whether their job was going to exist when lockdown finished. So they weren't spending money on, luxuries or nice to have things. And GearBunch fell into that bracket for a period of time as well, that, with that uncertainty, you don't want to go spend, $90 on a pair of leggings. You would rather make sure that you've got enough money in the bank for essentials. So we found that email was keeping them afloat. Then iOS 14 happened, and I was just like, far out, like this is just getting worse. So that's when I sort of realised that, okay, not everyone can afford to bring us on as an agency. We're like $3,000 a month to build out and manage your entire email marketing ecosystem, and that's just not feasible for some people. So that's when we started offering, only in the last few weeks, a free workshop where I'll come and tell people exactly what you need to do to automate your email marketing, which is where we're at. And the big thing was that I sort of doubted myself as an email marketer. I was very good at Facebook ads, but the copy you write's very short and sharp, and you hit your USPs, and your call to actions, or you add a bit of scarcity. Like all the common things that we see in short form ad copy. Occasionally we did long form, but it was the short form stuff worked really well for us. And I doubted myself as an email marketer for the reason that I just said I didn't have a marketing background. I wasn't a copywriter. The way you write for the police is everything's like a brief of evidence to go to court, and it's all factual. It's like, time, date, place, this person at this location. It's all like bullet points. It's never storytelling. It's always factual, very easy to read, but it doesn't resonate with people. It's just, let's get the facts out there. And so that doesn't correlate well with marketing. So I developed a system where I rely on, everything trying to be dynamic in terms of imagery and links and stuff like that for people to go back to make sure that my weakness, which is copywriting, wasn't a barrier. So once I figured that system out, I was just like, this is easy now. And this is, I think the quote that sort of sparked me was with email is that people don't read, they scan. Mm-hmm. And we need to just give them one job when they get their email. And that is, they're going to scan it. We do it. We're trained to scan because we scan our Facebook feed, our Instagram feed, whatever it is we're looking at, we scan. We don't sit there and read every word. So I figured out I don't need to be a copywriter because I only want to give people one job, and that's to get back to my website or back to the client's website. And that was just once I realized that I didn't need to write a story every time on the emails, then it was just easy to scale this system out for any product, for any service, for any client. It was so easy. And that's how we end up structuring everything that we do. And it works across so many different industries. We sell everything from bedding to coffee to leggings, obviously, to, I'm trying to think, we had an organic food product. What have we got at the moment? A furniture company. There's and these same strategies work for all of them, which is fantastic. So, that's sort of, where we're at in terms of the email marketing side of things.
What's your thought process on how to tackle the fact that a lot of the tracking now for email is getting limited because of the iOS change?
That's a good question. So it's not what we're relying on more and more is, when we looked at engagement with email, we always looked at open and click rates, and now those are skewed because the open rates are being overinflated by Apple device users, and the click rates are coming in under because what they're giving us is 100% open rate from these masked emails for privacy, but then we don't get a click. So we're getting, open rates are going up and click rates are dropping. So what we did is we included in those engaged segments people that were active on the site. So we added that as another metric to measure how engaged the people were. So we wanted to make sure that they were on our website as well as opening and clicking. The other thing we're doing is we can segment out the actual Apple device users within our email marketing, and we can look at those set of analytics separately from the main ones that still aren't affected by iOS 15. And that gives us a really good indication of where we're performing. If anything, it's going to improve the reputation of the sending domain where we're sending the emails from, because we're getting these exceptional open rates now from Apple users, but it's flawed. So we can't then rely on that data to, decide, well, that person's engaged and that person's not. So, there are other metrics that you connect, and that's why we use and recommend Klaviyo as our email marketing platform, because it integrates so well with Shopify, which is what we use for GearBunch and most of our clients use. It does integrate really well with BigCommerce and WooCommerce as well, but it's so granular in terms of being able to track people around your website. And what we're finding is that we're trying to complement. I don't try and look at email marketing on its own. So when I'm looking at data, I try and complement things. So I'll push custom audiences from Klaviyo. I'll build out segments and I'll push them to my Facebook ad account and use those in my Facebook ad account. Conversely, I will get data that I own from Shopify and bring that across into Klaviyo and create segments out of that. So I don't try and just look at my email marketing on its own. I try and complement the data from other sources and then push that data around that I own so that I get a more holistic reading on what's actually going on in my business or my clients' businesses. I think there will be a failure there if you just try and look at everything independently. If you don't treat it as a huge ecosystem, like this omnipresence that we have, then you're going to fall short, because none of them individually on their own might be meeting the metrics, but as like a global ROAS or your global analytics for your whole business, that's where you'll see the improvements. And look, Klaviyo is no dummy. Like they're going to, and neither is Facebook. So I'm going to say this. I'm not doomsdaying Facebook. It's pretty crap at the moment because of the attribution falling off, the reporting, the attribution windows, and even the targeting, because there is the restrictions on the privacy. But Facebook are really smart. They've got too much money invested in this for it to forever and a day not work. Like it's a huge income source for them. They'll figure it out. And so will Klaviyo. Klaviyo are smart dudes as well. Like they were a data company before they were an email marketing company. So that's why they're so good at providing analytics and data, because they were data driven.
Yeah. I mean, it would take someone like you to say something that I wholeheartedly believe. And it's one of those things that, like, even internally here, we're always talking about, it's digital marketing is not what it once was because of these reduction in traffic reduction in attribution tracking and, reduction in basically the way that people are even people are shopping. So it's a completely fluid approach in the way that people are shopping. So they may see a Facebook ad, but then go to Amazon, or then they go to your site, or then they Google you and then they click your ad. And so the whole attribution tracking becomes a pain. So the way that you kind of explained it is fantastic. Is like, you can't look at one specific channel and focus solely on that channel without taking all the other ones into account, because it's such a gray area now. Like like you said, your feed from Klaviyo or Facebook and vice versa is exactly how it should be done. In which case, you should be looking at the two holistically as opposed to just one, because they're helping each other. It's the same thing with paid advertising, or even with SEO. Is we talk to sellers who are really solely focused on how is this one specific blog doing, how much conversions did it get us? That's not really what it's for. It's meant to drive traffic. And so I love that you kind of have that same approach. How is it you're kind of like adjusting that going forward now that digital is becoming very similar to traditional?
Look, we're relying more on owning our own data. So, and look, I wouldn't want to have been a brand new startup business in the middle of COVID last year. I think that would have been an absolute nightmare to try and navigate. But the key is to concentrate on owning your own data, and that's what. Facebook does allow you to do that. It's just people don't know how to do that. So, as an example, like we've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday coming up. Now, traditionally, people would create an audience of purchasers. The most amount of time range you could have on that was 180 days. So they'd go back to that well of past purchases in the last 180 days, and they'd put a Black Friday, Cyber Monday ad in front of them. Now, that is limited by time, which is the 180 days. It's also now limited by the fact that Facebook doesn't capture all of those people because of the privacy restrictions with iOS 14. So the attribution's not there, the reporting's not there. But we own all that data in Shopify. So we get Shopify to talk to Klaviyo. We create different segments of all of our purchases of all time, but then also our more higher spending purchases and also our more frequent purchases. We then get those segments, make custom audiences in Facebook that way. We then complement it with the Facebook data that's being held at the ad account level by Facebook. And that then forms those audiences that we're going to push that out to for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Now, if I hadn't taken any interest in email marketing, or if I was just trying to push out my offers to the purchases that Facebook had recorded over the last 180 days, it would be significantly less audience that I'm going to be exposing my offer to. So the key is to just try and own as much of the data as you can and use it correctly. Talk to them at the point of that customer journey they're at, or talk to them as they, as to the loyalty that they've shown you. So I don't send the same email to someone who's visited my site once but never bought anything compared to someone who's been buying consistently off me for the last 3 years. That person gets treated the way they should get treated. I will treat that person with so much more, so much more personal detail even in the emails that go out to them, as opposed to the person that I don't really know, because the other person's like part of the family. The new person, they might eventually get there, but they get totally different messaging. We're trying to get them into that buying cycle with us. Mm-hmm. So, just own it and talk to people like they're real people.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely really getting to a point where like email has always been to me like one of the most important things that you can collect outside of sales. It's like the most second important KPI is how big is your list. And it really is because of how much you can leverage that. Like you can't target as well as you once could on Facebook, but you can run ads to people that you have their email on. You can just upload a custom audience. There's so many things that you can do with someone's email besides just send them an email. So it's amazing how many sellers are so focused on solely conversion just to start gathering an email. But like, what about like different pieces of gated content? And like, ebooks are a little boring, but any way that you can get someone, whether a calculator or a quiz or something like that you can gather someone's ebook or someone's email is just, it's amazing to me how many people don't focus on email generation and they just focus on revenue. Cause I think that that's going to hurt them several years down the road when you can't track anything anymore.
Well, I think I can confidently turn off all of my paid media and still be profitable for a period of time based on the email list. So that's the key, is that you can't keep going back to that well. You need to keep collecting more emails and refreshing that list and bringing new people into it, because people are going to drop off out of it. But, it's nice to know that, let's just say, when Facebook went down, a few weeks ago, that it wasn't the end of the world for me, because it wasn't like my whole business's livelihood was reliant on those Facebook ads running, So it's email. I just don't like, and I didn't even really understand the importance of it until I started running GearBunch for myself, running my own business, and then, sort of created this system to automate it. I'm big on automating things. And, once I realized the importance of it, and then I just worked on automating it, it was just like, I couldn't see why other people weren't doing it. Like, why other people, or they pinch pennies over, should I use Klaviyo because it's too expensive? I'm like, it's not expensive. It's like, it might cost you an extra $100 a month, but what it can do is amazing. They still saw email us like, well, we've got a list and we're going to send one campaign out a week to them, which is just crazy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what's your approach been on the Facebook ad side since the change back in, was it May?
Look, I've really shifted away from top of funnel. That's probably predominantly, I had a very typical structure. If I'm to simplify it, it was, your top, middle and bottom of funnel. Mm-hmm. We're looking at a lot more bringing top of funnel through Pinterest and Google Shopping, which is part of that diversification. The good thing with middle of funnel still with Facebook is if you rely on the data that you own yourself, your subscribers, past purchases, even things like actions people are taking on your website, like add to cart and stuff like that, you can push those back through. So we've got more of a middle and bottom of funnel custom audiences there. And we rely a lot on the data that Facebook own at that stage of the funnel. So things like people who've been engaged with your ads or engaged with your page or, have sent you messages, but haven't actually gone to your website. They're a really good audience. And that data is reliable because it's Facebook's own data. So you're building audiences there at that middle of funnel that Facebook own the data on. That's got nothing to do with privacy. This is purely that Facebook user's logged in and they're liking, sharing, commenting on your posts. Well, that data is reliable. Facebook own that data. So we then use that because we've created touch points with them already, obviously, we use that to get them through different stages of the journey, much the same as what we do with email marketing and SMS marketing and all of them. They all follow the same flows. We create that user experience and feed them through the funnel. But top of funnel, it's a work in progress all the time. But at the moment, I'm finding Pinterest, especially with our products, we're a female-dominated industry that's very bright and vibrant with our product range, and the longer pins really suit leggings. So it's a good match, and, top of funnel traffic we're getting for CPMs for $5 and under. Actually, usually a lot less than $5. We're getting clicks for under $1. We're getting conversions, even at top of funnel. Facebook, we got to a stage where our CPMs at top of funnel was still sitting around $50. It was about $2 a click, and we were not even breaking even on top of funnel, which I'm happy to do because we've got solid middle and bottom of funnel. But you can't just keep throwing, good money after bad. You can't just keep feeding it in the hope that it'll come good, because it was quite clear that it wasn't. And that's not to say I'm going to stop running Facebook ads. I'm still deep into that. I'm still, one of Facebook's global trainers. I'm just not running top of funnel at the moment. I'm running middle and bottom.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, like for the Pinterest side, like we could do a whole episode on how underutilized I think Pinterest is. It's such a gold mine. And I almost hate saying it on the show because I don't want anyone else to get on it because it's doing so well. So like it's bad. Pinterest is awful. No one should go on Pinterest. Don't go on there. No. I'll just keep testing stuff.
Look, honestly, it's retargeting on Pinterest is where I started. And it was great. It was like, how have I not done this before? I then tried, I always like to start at the bottom of the funnel and work my way up. So I then went to middle of funnel. I was like, oh, this is still working. Then I went to top of funnel, and that's where I sort of like, I don't know if this is going to work. But what I did learn fairly quickly is that the Pinterest user is at a different stage of the buying cycle to, I think Google, like someone Googles buy new leggings, their intent is to buy. Facebook, you go onto Facebook to be social, but they've been trained that there's going to be products put in front of them they like. Pinterest, it's like they're like window shoppers. They create these wish lists. I mean, that's what the platform was that's what it was developed as. It was like, this is where your old school pin board, where you pin up the things that you love and that you want and you aspire to have or become. And so I realized that cycle through Pinterest, that, it was taking us about 3 weeks to convert someone on the platform, whereas Facebook, we can convert them in the 7 days. Google, with the Google shopping, was taking us 14 days. So you just have to learn, what your normal time between purchase is on someone to convert someone on that particular platform. And once we realized that we needed to leave these top of funnel ones on for 3+ weeks to see the results, then we started to see the results that we wanted. It wasn't like Facebook, you turn it on and in, 48 hours, it hasn't converted, it doesn't have ROAS, turn it off. And the way it used to be, not that it's like that anymore, but, we were all trained to see these instant results. And if we didn't, we killed it and we moved on to something else.
Yeah. And with Pinterest, we always say like the best thing about it is no one's dedicated to a brand. If you go to Google, you might search Nike pink shoes. But if you went to Pinterest, you're just going to search pink shoes. So they haven't picked a brand yet. So that's why they're like perfect for that top of funnel side.
Yeah, they are. They're quite good.
I could chew your ear off all night. We could do this all day, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. Dan, I really appreciate having you on the show. This was great. I obviously want to do that typical moment where this is your chance to just let everyone know a little more about you. Obviously, take this opportunity to tell some people about Elite Brands, how they can find you. And I know you have an email workshop and all that fun stuff. So let everyone know where they can find that.
Yeah. So look, I'll provide you with the link for the email workshop. It's a free workshop where I just tell you how to do everything to automate your email marketing for your brand. I run those live every week. I love a live workshop. I don't like, I try to avoid the recorded ones unless I'm trying to juggle too many things, but I like to get in live and answer people's questions in real time. Look, I can provide you with the link for that. It's called Automated Email Profits. If you go to our website, elitebrands.org, you'll be able to see the links to register on there as well. I've got a YouTube channel, Email Marketing with Dan Nikas, Instagram channel as well, Instagram account that's Email Marketing with Dan Nikas. And we have a Facebook group called Elite Brands that I'm happy for you all to join. And look, on all those channels, I'm not just promoting crap to everyone. It's like the YouTube one I started it about 2 months ago, and there's 30 plus videos on there that just tell you how to maximize your efforts on Klaviyo. It's all free. It's all I just wanted to help as many people as I could. Obviously I need to earn a living, so I can't run everything for you for free, but I just thought if I can just help as many people as I can without an expectation of anything in return, when I do decide, hey, I'm going to run a free workshop, people are going to turn up and actually listen and take some action. So that's sort of, I've always been really open and honest with people and just saying, okay, I'm GearBunch, and people would say to me, like, don't tell people that you're that, they're just going to copy you. And I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I want to be honest with people. If they want to put in the work that I do, fine, they'll do well. But those people that are putting in that work, even if they're copying me, that they'll put in that same amount of work and build their own brand. Whether they know that I'm GearBunch or not, because it is a lot of work. It's not easy. So got the workshops. If you go to the website elitebrands.org, and you can see a little bit more info about us, and open book. Come into the group and ask questions, and let me know that you like this podcast. That'd be awesome.
Great. Dan, really appreciate it. Everyone who tuned in, everyone who listened, really appreciate everyone's tuning in. Obviously, make sure you subscribe on wherever podcast platform you prefer, or on our YouTube channel. Check out more at ecommshow.com. But per usual, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Keep on selling. We'll see you out there.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ecomm Show. Head over to ecommshow.com to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on the BlueTuskr YouTube channel. The Ecomm Show is brought to you by BlueTuskr, a full-service digital marketing company specifically for e-commerce sellers looking to accelerate their growth. Go to BlueTuskr.com now for more information. Make sure to tune in next week for another amazing episode of the Ecomm Show.